Hello everyone and welcome back to Silla's Podcast, or welcome to Silla's Podcast, and welcome to Silla talking about the fact that she has way too many books planned for April. Ka-ching, it's that time again. So, in April I'm actually taking part in another readathon, which is mostly just for fun and to motivate me to read my books, because I'm not entirely sure if I've said this like that specifically, but I went ahead and counted all the books I own that I haven't read yet, that I physically own that I haven't read yet, and the number was a little bit high. And so the goal of this year is to try and reduce that number by a lot. So what I am going to try to do is I'm going to try to pick a lot more books from my physical TBRs that I already own that I haven't read yet, because I would like to get some leeway there. Now, as per usual, this is more of a suggestion of a TBR because I know myself and my mood reading ass. But in order to entice myself to maybe stick with it to a certain extent, I'm also, as I said, going to be participating in a readathon for April, which is a readathon where you get to build a D&D character with the books that you read. So what I've gone and done is I have collected books that I want to read. Some of them are part of like a little bit of a longer series, and others are standalones, or just like, I think I have one duology here. I have something here where the first book just came out and we don't really know how many more books there are going to be in the series. It's a wild mix. And I've tried to squeeze these books into the categories that I needed to create my D&D character. Everyone, meet Aelwyn. Aelwyn is going to be a Air Genasi cleric who is lawful evil, which is going to be a lot of fun, because I've never played a lawful evil cleric before. And because she is a spellcaster but also can use weapons, we're going to do a few fun things here. So as I said, basically how the readathon works is you choose your D&D character, you start building up your D&D character, and don't worry for those of you who want to participate but have never played D&D before, there's a lot of additional information in the Google Drive link that I will be linking down below, so you can see what your character could potentially do with what you want to go for and everything. So you don't have to worry about knowing everything. I also don't know everything, but I do know that I like playing clerics, and so here we are. So we're just gonna go through the list of this. Some of these will not entirely make sense because they're part of a series. As I said, I just kept on squeezing books in there. For a lot of these, I have additional possibilities, I would say, because I like to give myself more than one option in case I don't like the book that I very specifically chose for a prompt. Because things happen, you know? So first and foremost, you have to choose the race of your character, and as I said, my dear baby is going to be an Air Genasi, and for a Genasi, which is basically an elemental type character, I had to choose a book with an element on the cover or in the title. So the four classic ones: air, fire, water, earth. There we go. And I went for Northwind by Gwyneth Jones. This is the second book in a trilogy. I believe the trilogy is just called White Queen. There's like a desert in the background, so this is for earth and wind, air. Hell yeah, this counts. Perfect. It's not that long, and it's like an older sci-fi series from, I think, the 1990s. Yeah, this one was first published in 1994, so hey! The second one is for the class, and since I am going to be playing a cleric, I had to choose a book with, like, religious undertones. Like, religion has to play a somewhat important role in this. And I went for Nama's Curse. She looks massive. She's not that big, I say, knowing that this is almost 600 pages. She looks a lot bigger. She's bigger than my head, Jesus Christ. But this is the second book in the Nama trilogy by Jacqueline Carey, which is the third and I do also believe last, at least for now, planned trilogy in the Kushiel universe. And One thing that's very important for the Crucial series is that a lot of it takes place in a country that very, very specifically is very much religious. And the thing about the Nama trilogy as well is that our main character is someone who is, for the lack of a longer and more detailed explanation, sent on a mission by her goddess. For something she's not herself entirely sure, and I don't want to spoil too many things, okay? It's a little bit hard talking about the third trilogy in a world without spoiling everything for the previous books, so we're just not even going to bother. Let it be said, though, this is a very religious series insofar that religion plays a very important role for most of the characters, and specifically the main characters of every single trilogy. So, we're gonna go with this one. Right. I know the size difference is fantastic. Amazing. Anyway, moving on. Next, you choose a background for your character. And I went with the background Outlander, which basically means a character who lives apart from the rest of society and also usually travels on the fringes of society. And you have to read a book that kind of gives you this similar vibes to that, essentially. And I went with White Queen by Gwyneth Jones. This is the first book in the aforementioned trilogy, where I'm reading Northwind for the element thingy. And it very much sounds like the main character. I think his name is Johnny Guglioni. Okay. It very much sounds like he's keeping himself apart from people, and he seems to be on a travel because aliens have landed in West Africa. This is all I know about this series. It sounds wild. I'm honestly very excited to get into it. So that's what I chose for this one, but I'm pretty sure that I'm probably going to find more books that relate to the Outlander background. Not gonna lie. So, we'll see what happens when I start going with these books. Right, next one is the environment your character grew up in and or is living in, and I went for On the Ocean, because I like ocean-themed things. And the book that I went for specifically to read for that is Fathom Folk by Elisa Chan. This is a very new release, and this is the absolutely stunning Illumicrate edition. She's so incredibly pretty. And I know almost nothing about this because I only know that there's underwater things and also so like I guessed that this was very watery themed, and so I'm gonna count this as the On the Ocean environment. And I'm really, really excited to start this. This is the first one in the series, by the way. No one knows how many books it's going to be. Maybe it's going to be a trilogy, maybe not. I guess I'll find out at some point. Also, I'm trying to keep all the books here so they don't fall off. So if anything makes a really loud noise in this video, that's what happened. Next! So the next one I got to choose, and I'm trying to find where I put the books. Oh, they're on my lap. I'm a little bit stupid. That's okay. We've all been there. The next one you got to choose is the deity that your character follows, and since my character is a cleric, this is kind of important because clerics get their powers from their deities, right? And more often than not, their powers also kind of relate back to whatever deity they have. And I went with the God of Death. Just go with it. And in order to fulfill that, I needed a book where bones were on the cover. And so I chose to go for my reread of a German fantasy book by an Austrian author. The German title is Knochenblumen welken nicht, which kind of translates to Bone Flowers Don't Wilt, I suppose. There's a lovely skull on the cover, as well as some bones here and there, and I am rereading this in order to get to the second book, which is called Knochenasche rottet nicht, or Bone Ash Doesn't Rot, I suppose. There's also a lot of bones on here, so I could technically also take this one. Because I've had this second one ever since it came out, but I haven't read it yet because I knew that I had to reread the first one. So, here we are. I'm really excited to get to these because I'm very excited to get to the second book. Very excited where it goes. So, that's my pick for my God of Death. Next one is, the alignment. Now, in D&D, you have a bunch of different alignments that usually are made up of two components. So you have chaotic, you have lawful, and you have neutral, and then you have good, and evil. Right, so you can be chaotic good, for example, you can be lawful good, and you can pick and choose these things however you want to. A lot of D&D players will also tell you that it's basically just vibes. Not really much else. But hey, and I went for lawful evil because in order to get your alignment you have to have a book with a cover that combines different colors. Every single possible idea for how you can combine your alignment is given a color, and if the book has these two colors on the cover, you're good to go. And lawful evil is the color combination red and blue, and I literally just went with what kind of books can I read for like all of the colors that are on here, and I happened to pick two books back to back that both had blue and red on the cover, and I was like, I feel like this is a sign by the universe. So lawful evil it is, and the book that I at this point want to go with, because it's a library book and I have to give it back at some point, and I'm so excited to get to it because it sounds so interesting, is The Djinn Waits 100 Years. Look at that stunning cover that I will be putting up somewhere here on the screen. I am so incredibly excited for this because it looks so cool. It said something along the lines of like it's combining Rebecca with like other ghost stories, and I love Rebecca. It's one of my favorite classics because it's so eerie and so beautiful and so sad and somehow also gay, and I'm super excited to get to this one because it looks so incredibly cool. So that is where Aelwyn got her alignment from. Yay! This is my first lawful evil character I'm ever going to create. I'm so excited. Next one is armor. Now here it's a little bit important to maybe read through some information if you have never played D&D before, because different classes can wear different types of armor. You have no armor, medium, no armor, light armor, medium, and heavy armor, and most characters will not be able to wear heavy armor, for example. Clerics wear medium armor, and so I went with, you know, medium, that prompt, and the prompt was to continue on with a series. Now, I took that a little bit literally. I was like, I don't feel like I can take a book that, like, finishes the series, even though I probably can because it's just for fun, you know? But I felt like that was something that I needed to keep in mind, that it cannot be the last one of a specific series. And bear with me here. The series that I went with in total, of which some books are going to be fitting into this prompt, is the first TBR series by Catherine Kerr. And the one that I went with specifically for this prompt, where I have to continue on with the series, is Darkspell, which is the second one in the TBR series. I'm really excited to get to these because a friend of mine kept on recommending them to me, and I have all four in various modes of decay because I got all of them used and I'm excited to get into them. So this is my perfect excuse to pick up this series because at least the first quartet is complete, and every other quartet is set in the same world but they're not necessarily super dependent upon each other, is what my friend told me. If I'm wrong, that's on her, not on me. But yeah, TBR number 2 for medium armor, continue on with a series. Now we get to my first spell slot, because obviously as a cleric I get to have spells, and because I went with a lawful evil character who worships the god of death, I did not want to immediately go for a healing spell. So the first spell that I chose is Ray of Sickness, which perfectly fits the theme. And in order to get to that, I had to read a book where poison features or a sick character features. And the book that I went for, which is a very short, like, crime novel mystery kind of situation, is a German translation of a Finnish book, and in German it's called Die Giftköchin, which basically translates to the poison cooker. And, apparently, from what I gathered from the back of it, it's about a grandma who does not want to be harassed by her grandchildren anymore, if I'm getting that correctly. And so she starts poisoning them. Go grandma? Question mark. I'm a little bit concerned. I've had this for a while. I got this used, and what can I say? It's one of the books that I want to finish reading because I have it on my physical TBR, and so we will see how much I like it. It's very short, as I said, which is kind of nice. So this is one possibility. I have a few more where poison is kind of like important to various degrees, and we're just gonna go from there, and we will see what happens. Basically, that's really all. That's really all we have with this entire readathon. It's basically just the reading challenge is like, you know, I need to read certain books, and I'm like, okay, how can I make these books about that somehow? Right. The second thing I got to choose is whether I wanted to have a second, like, primary spell slot, or if I wanted to have a weapon, and I went for a weapon, because, again, lawful evil cleric. Hooray! And the weapon I went for is a mace, which deals bludgeoning damage, and for a bludgeoning damage book, I needed to read something that people have been recommending to me, specifically friends have been recommending to me for a while now, and I am going to go with the second book in the Gale series by, I believe her name is Shauna Lawless, and I think the second one is Words of Kings and Prophets. I read the first one also upon recommendation of a friend, specifically Sarah. It's all her fault. I'm joking. I did very much enjoy the first book, and I have the second book from the library, and I have so far not picked it up yet, so I'm gonna go with that one. I do have a few more options in my room of books that friends recommended to me that I did not find on my own, so we can also figure something out if I don't get to this one specifically, but I do want to continue on with the series, so this is also a very good excuse. And the last one, unfortunately, I don't have physical dice with me because while I do play D&D, I more often than not play online because a lot of my friends are not in Germany, which, you know, honestly, kind of good for them, but also, please come visit me. But another thing that you're supposed to be doing at the end of everything when you filled out almost everything else is you're supposed to roll a d20, and before that, write down 20 books approximately, and just kind of like make a list of maybe some books that you really want to read, and some books that you're not that sure if you want to read, and after you've written all of those down, you're supposed to get a d20, which I'm going to do online, because I don't have a d20 physically with me, and you're going to pick the number of whatever it is that your dice has rolled for you. So, I've written down 20 books on here. You can't really read them. That's okay. And I'm gonna roll and see what happens. That is a 16. Okay. Oh, alright. 16 is Broken Light by Joanne Harris, and I have an ebook of that, so I'm gonna put the cover up here somewhere. Okay. So we're gonna be reading Broken Light. That's good to know. I didn't know we were gonna do that. And another thing for this readathon is, those are like, you have to read 10 books to quote-unquote qualify, so that's basically like I have made my list of 10 books. So we have Northwind, Nam's Curse, White Queen, Fathom Folk, Knochenblumen, The Gin Waits for 100 Years, The Very Number 2, Giftköchin, Gale Song number 2, and Broken Light, so we are at 10. However, if you have a martial class, so someone who fights with weapons, you can get yourself more weapon types if you want that, because a D&D character who is a martial type usually has more than one weapon. And as a magical type, so a wizard, a sorcerer, a warlock, a cleric, whoever can use magic spells, you're also allowed to keep on reading for additional spells that you can at some point put into your spell slots. All of the spells and everything that you need to know is, again, in the Google Drive, so you can find that there. And another thing you can keep doing, which I'm definitely going to keep doing, and maybe I'm also going to do some vlogs about this, I don't really know yet what I'm going to do in April, to be quite honest. But you can also start doing things for coins, and once you start gathering coins, you can also buy yourself them things, like, for example, some equipment, and so on and so forth. And I've decided that another spell I definitely want to start reading for is Cure Wounds, because at some point I do kind of maybe need some healing spells. And the thing that I have to do for Cure Wounds is I have to read a book that has healers, or nurses, doctors, something else, prominently displayed in it. And since we're already on the topic of reading books from a series, I went with the first DeVary book, which is called Daggerspell in my edition, because apparently there's a very prominent main, maybe not entirely main character, but there's a very prominent character who is a healer. I think he's a wandering apothecary, if I understood that correctly. I didn't want to delve too deeply into spoilers, because I am reading them, right? So, but this is the book that I chose for Cure Wounds, so I'm excited. Yeah, that sounded a little bit chaotic, which is entirely because I'm literally just using this readathon to make it fun to read a lot of books from my shelves. But in case you weren't keeping up, we have the 4 DeVary books that I want to read, so that's 4. We have this one, which I own, Giftköchen, so that's 5. We have the 3, because I do actually want to try and read the entire trilogy, unless I severely hate the first book, in which case I obviously will not be continuing. But we have the 3 White Queen books by Gwyneth Jones, so that is 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8. We have Nama's Curse, so that is 9 of, like, physically owned books that I have. I'm definitely gonna read these 2, so that is 11, which is fantastic because I have made the beautiful math decision that if I read 10 books every month until the end of the year of my physically owned books, I'm gonna be by about 100 physically owned books I haven't read yet at the end of the year. Not counting the books I buy in 2024. Let's not talk about this. Anyway, 10 and 11. Fathom Folk doesn't necessarily count because it's a new purchase, but it's still an owned book, which is fantastic for next year, for whenever Scylla needs to suffer about this again. And very randomly, I have this standalone, which is called Spare and Found Parts by Sarah Mariah Griffin, which is a, like, Frankenstein-esque inspired tale about a girl who builds herself a partner, I believe. That's what happens. I started reading it at some point. You can see it because I started actually annotating it, if you can see that. Oh yeah, there's a lot of annotations here sometimes. But I did not get past page 60, and then I stopped reading it, and I don't know what I read before that, so we're just gonna go back into it. But I'm probably not gonna annotate it, because that's a lot of work. But this is a random one that I also wanted to pick because it's fairly short. It's, I believe, YA fantasy. It's like 400 pages, so you know what, we're gonna cruise. So, yes. If you want to join the readathon, or the reading challenge, which is not really a readathon, is it? If you want to join the reading challenge, as I said, I will be linking every information that I can find about it down below, so you can still participate in it. You can look at the prompts. You can also just do it for fun and not necessarily participate per se in the reading challenge, but just pick some of the prompts for you and be like, hey, maybe I want to read my D&D character, which I already own, because you can definitely also do this with a character that you already have created, if you can find everything to the best of your abilities, including, obviously, like race and class and everything. If you want to participate, I will be leaving all the information down below. Let me know in the comments down below if any of the books I talked about are books that you've read or books that you are interested as well. And if you read them, tell me if you liked them or not. And also, just for fun, let me know in the comments down below, how are you doing with the physically owned books that you have, that you haven't read yet? On a scale of 1 to 10, how bad is it? Just so we can commiserate together, okay? I'm not shaming anyone. You see the situation here, okay? We've all been there. We probably all are there, so don't worry about it. But let me know in the comments down below if that bothers you when you have a lot of unread books on your shelves that you own but haven't started yet. Or if you're, like, apparently super good at keeping up with them, because then, you know, maybe some people are really good at that. Could not be me. But, you know, we're trying, and that's all that matters. So, as usual, I hope that you have a nice reading experience yourself, and that you will continue having a nice reading experience, maybe with some of the books that you own that you have not looked at for a long time, that you probably should start. And I will see you soon.